Marcus Chen had built an empire by the age of 32. Tech magazines called him a visionary. Forbes called him ruthless. His therapist called him emotionally constipated and touch-starved. "I'm not touch-starved," Marcus had protested during their last session, arms crossed defensively across his designer suit. "I'm just focused on my career." Dr. Williams had raised an eyebrow. "When was the last time someone hugged you?" Marcus had opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "My mother. Last Christmas." For approximately 4 seconds before she started criticizing my posture. "Marcus." "What?" "I'm fine. I don't need physical affection. I have a Peloton." "That's not the same thing." Which was how Marcus found himself staring at a website called Comfort & Company Professional Cuddling Services at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, his executive assistant's voice echoing in his head. "Sir, Dr. Williams sent over some resources she thought might help with your condition." The website was surprisingly legitimate. Professional, clean interface, strict policies, background check providers. And the one detail that made Marcus actually consider it: all cuddle specialists wore masks during sessions to maintain professional boundaries and ensure the focus remains on therapeutic touch rather than personal attraction. Anonymous. Professional. No one would ever know that Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies, was so pathetically lonely he was paying someone to hold him. He clicked book now before he could overthink it. The confirmation email arrived within minutes, along with a questionnaire about his preferences. Marcus filled it out clinically. Male provider preferred. No talking during sessions. Firm pressure. Someone tall enough that he wouldn't feel awkward. Marcus was 6 feet 1 inch and had never been comfortable being the taller person in an embrace. 3 days later, he received his appointment confirmation with provider number 47, codename Atlas. Atlas. How pretentious, Marcus thought, even as something in his chest loosened at the idea of someone strong enough to carry the weight he'd been shouldering alone. The cuddling studio was located in a discreet building in downtown Seattle, tucked between a yoga studio and an organic tea shop. Marcus arrived exactly on time, wearing a hoodie and jeans, the most casual outfit he'd worn in public in 5 years. The receptionist barely glanced at him. "Mr. Chen, Atlas is ready for you in room 3. Please remember our policies. No personal questions, no photography, and respect all boundaries. Your provider will be wearing a mask per our protocol." Marcus nodded, palms suddenly sweaty. This was ridiculous. He was a CEO. He'd given presentations to thousands of people. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. Why was he nervous about hugging? Room 3 was softly lit with plush floor cushions, a daybed loaded with pillows, and a faint scent of lavender. Calming music played from hidden speakers. And, standing by the window, back turned, was Atlas. Tall, maybe 6 feet 3 inches. Broad shoulders. Dark hair, slightly too long, curling at the nape of his neck. Gray sweatpants and a soft black t-shirt. And yes, a simple black cloth mask covering the upper half of his face, leaving only his jawline and mouth visible. Something about the curve of that mouth made Marcus's breath catch. Familiar. Impossible. "Mr. Chen," Atlas said, and Marcus's world tilted sideways. That voice, deep and warm with a slight rasp. He knew that voice, had heard it whisper his name in the dark, laugh at his terrible jokes, say goodbye 5 years ago in an airport terminal. No, 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 no. It can't be. "Please, call me Marcus," he managed, hoping his voice didn't betray his sudden panic. Atlas turned fully, and even with the mask, Marcus could see the slight widening of his eyes. A moment of recognition? Or just professional assessment? "Marcus," Atlas repeated, and God, the way he said it. "I'm Atlas. Have you done this before?" "No. First time." "Is it always this awkward?" A soft laugh. "Usually, but it gets easier. Why don't we start simple? We can sit on the daybed, and you can lean against me. No pressure, no expectations. Just rest." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. He settled onto the daybed, and Atlas positioned himself against the headboard, long legs stretched out. He opened his arms in invitation. This was insane. Marcus was 90% sure this was his ex-boyfriend. His ex-boyfriend who he'd broken up with 5 years ago because he'd been too focused on building his company for a relationship. His ex who'd said, "I love you, but I can't be with someone who won't let me in." His ex, who apparently now worked as a professional cuddler, and Marcus was paying him $120 an hour to hold him. The universe had a sick sense of humor. But Marcus was also desperately, pathetically touch-starved, and Atlas was right there, warm and solid and offering exactly what Marcus had been craving for 5 years. He leaned back against Atlas's chest. The effect was immediate and devastating. Strong arms wrapped around him, careful but secure. A hand settled over his heart. Warmth seeped through his clothes. Marcus felt his breathing automatically sink with the steady rise and fall of Atlas's chest. "Good," Atlas murmured. "Just breathe. You're safe here. Safe." When was the last time Marcus had felt safe? He closed his eyes and tried not to think about how perfectly he still fit against this body. Try not to notice the familiar scent underneath the neutral laundry detergent. Something woodsy and clean that he'd never been able to find again, no matter how many cologne counters he'd haunted. "You're very tense," Atlas observed, his hand making slow circles on Marcus's shoulder. "Do you want to talk about it? Or would you prefer silence?" "Silence," Marcus said quickly. If Atlas spoke more, he'd be certain. And if he was certain, he'd have to leave, and he couldn't bear to leave this warmth. "Okay, silence it is." They sat like that for the full hour. Atlas held him with a competence that spoke of practice, adjusting his grip when Marcus shifted, applying pressure when he sensed Marcus needed grounding, loosening when Marcus needed to breathe. It was professional, therapeutic, everything the website had promised. It was also the best Marcus had felt in 5 years. When the timer chimed softly, Marcus had to physically restrain himself from clinging tighter. "That's time," Atlas said gently. "How do you feel?" "Better," Marcus admitted. Then, because he couldn't help himself, "Do you enjoy this work?" A pause. "I do. It's meaningful. People need touch, need connection. There's no shame in that." "And the mask? Doesn't it make it harder to connect?" "Sometimes, but it keeps things clear. This isn't about me. It's about providing what you need." Alice's hand squeezed his shoulder once before letting go. "Same time next week?" Marcus should say no. Should run far away from this situation. Should definitely not book another session with his possible ex-boyfriend turned cuddler. "Yes," he heard himself say. "Same time next week." Marcus lasted 3 days before he started internet stalking. A little Googling revealed that Atlas wasn't just a code name. It was a reference to the myth. The Titan who held up the sky. Very poetic. Very on-brand for someone who'd once minored in classical literature. Someone like Jamie Torres, Marcus's ex-boyfriend, who'd had the Titan Atlas tattooed on his ribcage. Marcus pulled up old photos on his phone, the ones he'd never been able to delete. Jamie laughing at Pike Place Market. Jamie asleep in Marcus's college apartment. Jamie at graduation, looking proud and beautiful and young. They'd been so young. Marcus had been 27, just starting Chen Technologies. Jamie had been 25, finishing his master's in psychology. They'd been in love, or Marcus had thought they were, until his company started taking off, and suddenly he was working 80-hour weeks and forgetting anniversaries, and pushing away the one person who'd actually cared about him. "I can't do this anymore," Jamie had said, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, Marcus, but you won't let me in. You won't let anyone in. And I can't watch you work yourself to death while pretending you don't need anybody." Marcus had let him go. It had seemed like the right thing to do. Jamie deserved someone who could give him attention, affection, time. Someone who wasn't married to their company. 5 years later, and Marcus had his empire. His success. His empty penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased a city full of people he never touched. His second session with Atlas was even worse than the first, because now Marcus was certain. The way Atlas's thumb traced absent circles on his wrist. Jamie used to do that while they watched movies. The soft humming under his breath when he thought Marcus was relaxed. Jamie had hummed while cooking. The slight catch in his breathing when Marcus accidentally shifted closer. Jamie knew. He had to know. But he said nothing, just held Marcus with professional care, and somehow that hurt more than anything. By the fourth session, Marcus was unraveling. "You're thinking too much," Atlas observed as Marcus lay rigid in his arms. "I can feel it. What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Marcus." The way he said the name, fond exasperation, was pure Jamie. "You're paying me to help you relax. Let me help. Why do you do this?" The question burst out before Marcus could stop it. "The cuddling." "What?" A long pause. "I'm getting my doctorate in psychology, specializing in touch therapy and intimacy disorders. This is research and healing for my clients and for me. For you, I had a relationship once. Someone I loved very much, but he couldn't accept care, couldn't be vulnerable. It broke my heart." Atlas's voice was carefully neutral, but his arms tightened fractionally around Marcus. "This work reminds me that needing connection isn't weakness. I wish I could have taught him that." Marcus's heart was trying to escape his chest. Maybe he was an idiot. Maybe. But I think he was just scared. A soft sigh. "I hope he learned to let people in. I hope he's happy. What if he's not? What if he regrets it?" The silence stretched long enough that Marcus wondered if he'd crossed a line. Then Atlas spoke, so quietly Marcus almost missed it. "Then I'd tell him it's not too late. But he'd have to actually want to change. Not just say it. Prove it." Marcus closed his eyes. "And if he wanted to try?" "Is this a hypothetical question, Marcus?" "I don't know. Is it?" "Jamie." The world stopped. Atlas went completely still. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached up and removed his mask. And there he was. Jamie Torres. 5 years older, a little more weathered, but still beautiful. Still looking at Marcus with those warm brown eyes that had once seen straight through all his defenses. "Hey," Jamie said softly. "Took you long enough." Marcus sat up, heart racing. "You knew. This whole time, you knew it was me. The agency sends us client files. Minus names, but I recognized your preferences. Your schedule. The way you wrote your answers. Precise, controlled, terrified of seeming vulnerable." Jamie's smile was sad. "I knew it was you the moment you booked. And you took the appointment anyway. I thought about declining. But," Jamie looked away, "I wanted to see if you changed. If you'd learned to ask for help. And when you walked in, looking so lost and scared and trying so hard to hide it, I couldn't turn you away." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. "I'm sorry. For 5 years ago. For pushing you away. For being too stupid and scared to." "Marcus, I look for you." Marcus continued desperately. "After the first year, when I realized what I'd lost. But you'd moved, changed your number. I thought maybe you'd found someone else, someone better, and I had no right to intrude on your life, but I never stopped." Jamie kissed him. It was soft and sweet and tasted like tears. Marcus wasn't sure whose. When they broke apart, Jamie was smiling through his own crying. "You idiot," Jamie said fondly. "I never found anyone else. How could I? I was still in love with you." Past tense. "Marcus Chen, I've been holding you once a week for a month, and it's been torture not being able to just tell you who I am and kiss you stupid." Present tense. Very, very present tense. Marcus laughed, the sound wet and relieved. "I'm still not good at this. The vulnerability thing. The letting people in thing. I noticed. You literally had to pay someone to hold you. I paid you to hold me." Semantics. Jamie cupped Marcus's face. "But you came. You asked for help. That's progress. I started therapy. I know. Dr. Williams is one of my professors." She might have mentioned she was referring a particularly stubborn client. Jamie grinned. She didn't break confidentiality. "But I might have guessed. Is this ethical? You cuddling me while knowing who I am?" "Probably not. I should transfer you to another provider." Jamie's thumbs stroked Marcus's cheekbones. "But I'm not going to. Not unless you want me to." "I don't." Marcus leaned into the touch. "I want you. Still. Always. If you'll give me another chance. On one condition. Anything. You let me in. Really in. No more walls. No more." I'm fine when you're falling apart. No more choosing work over us. I have a company to run. I know. And I'm not asking you to give that up. I'm asking you to make room for me too. For us. Jamie's expression turned serious. I've grown too, Marcus. I have boundaries now. I won't accept scraps of your attention. It's all in, or it's not happening. Marcus thought about his empty penthouse, his expensive suits that no one touched, his success that felt hollow without anyone to share with. He thought about 4 sessions of being held by this man and feeling more alive than he had in 5 years. All in, he said firmly. I want all in. I'll probably screw up sometimes. I'll probably work too late and forget to text. And I'll call you on it. And we'll fight about it. And we'll figure it out together. Jamie smiled. That's what people who love each other do. I do. Love you, I mean. I never stop. I know. Why do you think I became a professional cuddler? Jamie laughed at Marcus's confused expression. I'm kidding. Mostly. But this work, it taught me that people need connection. That asking for help is brave, not weak. I wanted to help people learn what I learned too late with you. Not too late. Marcus corrected, pulling Jamie closer. Just delayed. Delayed, Jamie agreed. So what now? Now I book all your available appointments. Marcus, you can just date me like a normal person. You don't have to pay me to hold you. But what about your research? I have other clients. And ethics board regulations about dual relationships. Jamie kissed his nose. You're getting me for free now. Best deal I've ever made. They spent the rest of the session just talking, really talking, the way they hadn't in 5 years. Marcus told Jamie about the loneliness of success, the way he'd built walls so high he'd trapped himself inside. Jamie told him about grad school, his research, the way he'd learned to value himself enough to demand better. When the session ended, they didn't separate. Come home with me, Marcus said. Please. I know it's fast, or maybe it's not since we've technically been dating for a month. Marcus. And I promise I'll take you on actual dates and do this properly. But right now, I just want to hold you in my own bed and wake up tomorrow without this being a dream. Jamie's smile was radiant. Okay, but I'm keeping the mask. Might need it for role play later. Role play? Oh, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Jamie's grin turned wicked. I have extensive training in therapeutic touch now. I could show you some techniques. Marcus kissed him to shut him up, but he was smiling too hard for it to be effective. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of his board of directors and announced he was implementing a new policy. Mandatory mental health coverage for all employees, including access to alternative therapies like massage, meditation, and yes, professional cuddling services. Physical touch is a human need, he said firmly, and we need to stop stigmatizing the ways people get that need met. I want Chen Technologies to lead the industry in employee wellness. The board approved it unanimously, probably because Marcus's productivity had somehow increased since he'd started delegating more and maintaining work-life balance, their words. What they didn't know was that Marcus now left the office at 6 p.m. sharp 3 days a week, that he spent weekends at Jamie's apartment, learning to cook badly and laughing freely and being held constantly, that he'd learned the difference between being lonely at the top and building something with someone beside you. You're insufferable when you're happy, his assistant commented, watching Marcus actually smile at his phone. Who are you texting? My boyfriend. You have a boyfriend? I have a boyfriend who's also my therapist. Kind of. It's complicated. That sounds unethical. You have no idea, Marcus said cheerfully, then left the office to meet Jamie for lunch. Because he'd learned something important in the last 6 months. Success meant nothing if you had no one to hold at the end of the day. And love meant everything when you finally let yourself be held in return. And if he still paid comfort and company for the occasional session, where Jamie showed up in the mask and they pretended to be strangers meeting for the first time, well, that was between him, Jamie, and the NDA he definitely signed.